As Andrew mentioned, my name is Michael Inwood. I'm a 2011 Nuffield Scholar, and my topic is sustainable regenerative agriculture. And I've got a byline there. I've called it Farming in a World of Finite Resources. Firstly, I'd like to reiterate all the kind words that everyone else that's presented talked about the help of the Nuffield organisation, Jim Gelch, and especially the Sydney Myer Fund, who sponsored my scholarship. I think I'm the fourth Sydney Myer Fund scholar, and I think with the interest that the Sydney Myer Fund have in environmental aspects of natural resource management, that it's a very good fit considering the amount of agricultural land, or amount of land in Australia that's under the control of agricultural managers. Just a quick bit of background on myself, where I'm from. Our farm's called Toulon. It's about 800 hectares. We're at Bathurst in central west of New South Wales. We're a superfine and ultrafine merino property. We do some opportunity cropping, and probably most of that cropping is to do with the bit of a dabble we have with first cross lambs, which has been quite a good thing to do more recently with wool prices where they've been. As well as the on-farm main enterprise, we've also been involved in a natural resource management project called Toulon Engaging Nature. This is, I'll just really briefly tell you a little bit about it. And it's all about trying to use natural solutions or management decisions that perhaps tip the favour tip the balance in nature's favour, just to see if we can get a bit of an assist in our costs of production, using nature, I guess, to the fullest. One of these is not an inexpensive exercise, but we did develop a solar-powered crop sowing system. That's a picture of it there. I'll leave the detail out, but it does work. It's a prototype, a proof of concept. It is fully scalable. The big issue with alternative energy and electric vehicles is basically the battery technology and the costs associated there. I'll go back to the core of the topic. The word sustainable is used a lot everywhere at the moment. It seems to be a byline on every company vision statement. I needed to use it because it really does. I mean, most people understand what that means, to be sustainable. But the word I prefer to use is regenerative, because if you're sustainable it also can give you an effect where you might be just treading water. Things aren't getting any worse, but they're not getting better. And I think what we need to be doing to be sustainable is to actually build systems, build some buffer and insurance into the system as we go, so that in the good times we build, and in the bad times we don't necessarily go backwards. The main themes I wanted to address were how do we farm in a world with finite resources? What resources are going to become limited first? Where are the big advances going to come from to increase our nutrient efficiency? And how will soil biology be a part of this solution? So, and again, with a mind to try and look at the cheaper, more natural solutions where possible. During my study, both in the GFP and my personal study, I travelled over 10 countries, some of them more than once. Incredible experience, and when David Brownhill phoned me to tell me that I was lucky enough to get the scholarship, he said, well, you're in for the ride of your life whether you know it or not, and he was right. Just a couple of quick trivia things about the travel. I did over 40 trips at 30,000 feet, and we did one trip on the GFP, 600 metres underground. Nuffield Canada were looking after us at that stage, and they assured us that the trip to the salt mine wasn't because we'd misbehaved anywhere, but it was a really interesting aspect of agriculture. It's actually the potash mine that BHP tried to buy. We also went to China, where we looked at a fully automated robotic milk processing plant in Inner Mongolia. This is in the world's most populous country, where on the floor in that factory you were hard pressed to find a human being. Then we went to the USA, where we looked at a lot of intensive agriculture, and as has been mentioned before, and Anne mentioned it, there's a lot of labour available there, but most of it's coming from south of the border. we just had a few more people in Tasmania, we might be able to have a similar Okay, I spent a lot of time at research facilities, talking to researchers, talking to consultants, and mostly talking to practitioners, farmers who are actually interested in this topic and engaged in the practice. I think it's one of the strengths of Nuffield that you can travel as an individual with a topic, a study topic, a research topic, go and see the specialists in that field, and then look at that topic with much more breadth than they can ever do. You can cross disciplines and you can go right to the practical level. And I think some of the best consultants that I talked to over there had come out of research and now are on the ground with farmers, because in a lot of cases the farmers are leading the research. I will focus on soil, but I thought this was very interesting. This was a sign in front of a bank in the USA, and here you have 30-year fixed interest rates at 3.8%, like nearly 3.9%. That's got to help with sustainability in your business. That's got to help when you want to encourage young people in. What's better than that are the young farmer programs they have, where there's another 2% off that. So young farmers in the US can access interest rates 1.5%, 2%, fixed for 20 years for land and livestock. So in Australia, I think where we look at stamp duty exemptions or $20,000 grants, I think potentially there's a lot more that needs to be looked at, because sustainability in agriculture involves everyone, not just farmers. Where are we headed? I guess that a good place to start is with the finite resources that are potentially going to be limiting in agriculture. I use phosphorus as an example because a lot of the other resources will be limiting in a similar sort of situation. The situation with phosphorus is that most of the world's stocks are known. Most of them, the low fruit's been picked first, and most of the stocks are declining. And as they decline, the quality of the resource goes down, so the yield percentage phosphorus stuff comes down too. Now, if I'd been giving this talk 2 years ago, it would have been probably a bigger issue and more important. But what's happened more recently is that Morocco and southern Sahara has the world's largest resource, and that's been upgraded from 5 billion tonnes to, 6 billion tonnes to 50 billion metric tonnes. So a 9-fold increase. And that's the only resource in the world that they've upped the levels on. And there's a lot of conjecture about that increase, but the US Geological Survey is sort of coming behind that. That takes the pressure off, but it doesn't remove the fact that now we have 77% of the world's phosphorus reserves in one geographic location. So we have issues there with political stability, and potentially a resource that could be monopolised a little bit. There's only one certainty, and that is that phosphorus will get more expensive. We won't run out of phosphorus because there are other places to go and look for it, including on the bottom of the sea, but it's almost cost prohibitive in some cases. And I won't do too much on phosphorus, so I don't want to get into the biology stuff, but just as a quick idea of where our phosphorus comes from. Phosphorus is essential, it's in every living cell, and it's not replaceable, so we need to use it. Historically, this graph goes from 1800 through to 2000. So you can see manure has played a great part in providing fertiliser. There is a small white line on top of the manure, and that's actually biosolids, or human biosolids. The red area is the area of concern because that's the mined phosphate rock, and at the moment that is mined, it's a finite resource, and almost none of it is coming back, and that's the white line. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but what we need to do is, they talk about peak phosphorus when they peak. Well, that's a debatable thing. We're only talking about a date. We're not talking about the fact that it will actually. We will get to that point. I went to Rothamsted Research Station in the UK, where Professor Steve McGrath, his best estimate is that probably up to 25% of our phosphorus requirements could come from recycled biosolids. There are issues with that because there's heavy metal contaminants, there are hormones, and also chemo drugs that are issues. But it's a case of treatment, and as the cost of phosphorus goes up anywhere, then there'll be an ability to process, but at what cost? There are limitations on manure supplies. There's a lot of test data out about organic farming and the ability of organic farming to feed the world, and it's really interesting stuff, and you can get close to and equal to conventional yields out of organic systems. The research from Rollemstead is, and they're doing trials like this, they've got 168 years of continuous trials. It's the oldest agricultural trials in the world. But you need about 35 tonnes to the hectare of manure. If we were to try and fertilise our crops in the world using manure alone, they'll need to run 3.5 times as many cattle in the UK and 7 times as many cattle in the US just to provide the manure. So you can see this goes on, like how do you feed those extra stock? You're going to lose cropping land. The title of this, I meant it to be a little bit confronting, but not a criticism of modern agriculture at all. It's just a case that in a lot of areas of management, what we do actually adversely impacts soil biology. And a little bit more detail on that is that with plant breeding today, we have highly productive varieties, and we'll put those highly productive varieties, we'll put a seed in the soil at a certain depth, in a soil of a certain tilth, and we'll ban fertiliser at a depth under that. And then at the appropriate times, we keep putting fertiliser in to achieve the maximum yield. All of those, most of the plant breeding is done in isolation and doesn't take into account the symbiotic relationships that plants have with biology. And these have evolved over millions and millions of years. I think what we need to start looking at is the sort of relationships that can be fostered and understood and researched in a similar way to legumes, where we use inoculums, and there could be a suite of biology that could go along with a certain crop that could come in. The single bullet solution, silver bullet solution, or single application of biology doesn't seem to be stacking up as one of the better ways to do it, other than in the case of, say, rhizobium. This is an interesting little one. I think as I travel around the world, it's important to compare apples with apples. And I was talking about minimum tillage. This is from Nuffield in Switzerland. It's an organic research institute. And they wanted me to see their reduced tillage trial plots because they're increasing soil organic matter and soil biology. And their reduced tillage project plots, basically the reduced tillage is the conventionals over here, which is the big mulball ploughs. Reduced tillage is a chisel plough or stubble mulch to a reduced tillage depth of 5 centimetres. And then a rototiller is part of the reduced tillage application at 5 centimetres. So until I'd actually seen that and had a look at what they're talking about. Now in their soils and their application, and it's an organic research institute, this was working and they worked with the soil organic matter. So in Australia it wouldn't be applicable at all, but you can't just take data from somewhere else and bring it here and think that it's going to work and be applicable in the way that we would. Introducing soil biology, the results of this have been extremely variable. There are some products on the market that have been that have different claims of results, and the research into this I think is really important. So the only really successful applications that I know of and that the researchers kept commenting on were basically rhizobium and legumes, and perhaps mycorrhizal fungi that developed ways to use it, to introduce it in a little bit more effectively. Part of this is because soil biology relies on plants. If you have specific species of plants that will support certain types of biology, and the more plants you bring in, the greater the suite of biology you get going on. And really, the more you have, the better result. It's compounding the benefits. I'd actually go back to this slide, where we have a plant, and you can see the main root system of this plant here. But this foggy area all around it is mycorrhizal fungi. And that exponentially increases that plant's root system to the nutrients and soil moisture in the soil around it. Now mycorrhizal fungi won't create that relationship with every plant. Brassicas don't foster mycorrhizal fungi. But there's about 2 billion soil microorganisms in every teaspoon of soil. So there's so much there that they actually don't know what most of it, like 90% of it does and how it works. But it's an incredible resource to look at. Another important thing is that the response that plants have with the soil biology to access phosphorus is actually initiated by a phosphorus deficit. So when a plant is having a phosphorus starvation response, it will then initiate this thing with mycorrhizal fungi, and the fungi uses bacteria to start to get this phosphorus. And it's quite complicated, but it's a really simple thing. If you don't have the biology there, you won't get that response. The guy in this picture is from Pennsylvania in the US. His name's Steve Groff. He's a cover cropping guru. And there's a picture of him in front of the cover crop. And he's using over 16 species of different plants. And he said you just can't get enough in there. He thinks 20, 22 or more would be better. The idea is put these in, and it stimulates a huge suite of soil biology underground. The cover crop can be used as a green manure crop, in a stack rotation, use it between your cash crops or your cropping system. The picture in the middle is of a fodder radish, and he's at the tubers at the bottom of these are his nitrogen canisters, so that they actually mop up and scavenge nitrogen, then later on that'll be released into the crop that he sows later. You need to terminate a cover crop, so you can plough or you can spray it, but the machine on the right-hand side of the picture is a crimp roller, which rolls the crop down, puts crimp in the stem and shuts the plant down. They've got these things now, big hydraulic rigs that are 30 feet plus wide, so they're getting, it's getting used in a broader acre sort of way more recently, rather than just the small horticultural applications. I visited two places that were extremely interesting while I was overseas. One was in California, Marine Bioinnovations. They are developing, they produce organic products, but their biggest clients are in the conventional field because the products work. They derive all of their products from native soil bacteria and biology. They've got over 16,000 species isolated that they work with, and they've got soil samples from all around the world, so they're working on this continuously. They've got products that are non-toxic, that have no withholding period. So this is why the conventional vegetable growers like them, because they can use them, there's no withholding, and it's not going to affect the current biology that's there. That's the big problem with a lot of herbicides and chemicals, is that once you use them, you can actually take whole sections of this biology out. Agriculture, unlike a lot of sectors in the US, is solid at the moment, and the biotech area is the fastest growing area in agriculture in the US. I went to Washington State University, and a researcher called Ann Kennedy's isolated bacteria there that will impede and control one of their main cropping weeds, which is cheatgrass. And this bacteria prevents root elongation. I mean, it really doesn't matter how it works, but the research into these areas is becoming more prominent simply because regulation and testing on a lot of chemicals is quite hard and expensive, and if you've got something that's naturally occurring in the soil to start with, it's a lot less toxic. We've had a big talk on biochar, so I won't talk about it much at all. The only thing I will say is that the variable results that were referred to before sometimes come out of the methodology that's used or the understanding of the product itself. If you put biochar into soil that has no soil biology working, you're probably not going to get a great result. And there's one study, I spoke to people at Pacific Pyrolysis at Summersby that had that plant that was in the picture, and they referred to a study where they made their own biochar on site for the trial plots, and when they did the pyrolysis process, it's a range of time in the process and temperature, but they didn't crack the oil that comes off it. There's oil and gas and energy that come out. They didn't crack the oil correctly, so that the char was coated with oil, and the oil is toxic to plants. So at every test level that they put on the test plots, the yields decreased as they put the biochar levels up. And that's just a simple thing, but those results were published, and that might have been some of the ones you referred to, where they actually had negative yield increases, negative yield results. Genetically modified soil organisms. I think I tried to look at what was potentially going to come, what's coming in the next 10, 20, 50 years. I think genetically modified soil organisms will be way more contentious than genetically modified plants. They are doing work on this. The ones that I've heard of, when released with other strains of biology, were pathogenic and just killed everything else out. The problem with the soil biology is that if they release GM soil biology, it's underground, you can't see what it's doing, and it won't respect fence lines. Nanotechnology is also an interesting one, and a lot of organic associations have banned the use of nano products, because even if you take a simple soil additive or product and take it to the nano level, it will then it will react chemically completely differently to what it will at its normal state. So, which would mean a whole new regime of testing on every single one of those additives. A couple of recommendations that I think are valid are funding. All around the world, and every politician in the world is mentioning the fact that population in 2050 and how do we feed the world, and at the same time, agricultural funding all around the world seems to be decreasing. It's sort of hard to balance that up. I think funding specifically in biological ecosystems would need to increase, because it's generally a very small part of the agricultural funding pie. Now, plant species breeding with paired biology, I think, is really important in the same way that legumes are paired with inoculums. That's one way to do it, but with a suite of biology, not just one piece. I think we need to view the entire food and fibre chain in sustainable terms. It's not fair that the agricultural sector, that within the community there's an expectation that the agricultural sector will be clean and green and sustainable, and when we ship our product to them in the market or processing, that then the resource that is left after that, which is the biosolids, is potentially shipped out as in an ocean outfall. I think that the whole needs to be a whole of community response. It was mentioned before about trying to cart fertiliser and things around that are bulky. Maybe that needs to be something that the costs are borne by everyone involved, including the people that eat it, rather than just the people that produce. The other one, probably at a farm level, is to build affordable feed if you can. And that would mean probably more the less soluble forms of phosphorus that you could get soft rock phosphates and things, and start building those levels in your soil now, because they are slowly released and you would have a bank of this stuff in the soil. Cheap food for all. Australia keeps, it's quite often pushed by us, and it's known around the world that we're a source of clean green product and cheap food. I think we need to really look at the fact that we should be producing moderately priced food of high nutritional value, and that's probably way more important. I don't think that the sort of system we have at the moment, where the lowest cost thing in the supermarket is what attracts everyone, is really taking agriculture forward, and food has had its value lessened to such an extent that it's not really valued by the population in general. I think the transition to future farming is going to be achieved through a hybrid mix of soil biology and inputs, and one day we'll all be farming biologically, simply because soil biology is half of the equation, and we can't afford to ignore that. It's just the research side of things aren't keeping up with that. I'd like to thank the June-July 2011 Global Focus Group. I made lifelong friends in that trip. It was a wonderful experience. I'd like to thank my beautiful wife Therese and my 5 children. Planning for my Nuffield started about 17 years ago, and I had to make sure that I left it with enough help at home when I went away. I'd like to thank both Therese's parents and my parents, but especially my father, who looked after everything while I did my travel. And that's about it. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, what? Probably a statement. I think I farm biologically now. Do I or don't I?
Look, there's soil biology everywhere. The problem is it's very easy to take a whole section of that out. And it's the bits that are missing are the problem. It's a whole ecosystem that works under there. And I think in varying degrees, from between a completely biological farm and let's go back, we won't say conventional farming, because conventional farming nowadays is minimum till.
Well, they had been described as chemical day next week.
Well, I was there. I think between the
organic fellow over the corner there.
if you took a biological farmer here, and let's go back to farming practices in the 50s maybe, where it was ploughed and ploughed and ploughed. There's a million degrees of grey in between. So I think, and it depends on where you are and what your soil types are like. And probably the management regime needs to match the soil types and what you're doing. Is that statement sort of fit with your statement?
Just leading on from that, so how do we as farmers go about finding out what's there and what management practices we need to implement to make sure we've got
I wouldn't actually recommend like a certain organisation or a company, or because there's a lot of this happening now. You can send soil samples off and get the complete suite of, or be told potentially what you've got there. The problem is that they know about so little of the soil organisms. I know with the new genomics that they have now, that they're doing DNA type testing, so they are finding out more and more and more of what's there, but they still don't know what it does. But they can tell you more of what's there. I think specific crops need specific requirements too, and that's where we come back to the research. The research has got to catch up to people like the Steve Groff. What he's doing there, the results he's getting. It's not, and it's multifold. It's not just I'll have a cover crop. There are guys next to him who are not interested at all in the soil biology. They just want to do the cover crops because the forage radish is allelopathic and it will take out a lot of other weeds. And when they grow their pumpkins, they're growing them on this mulch that they've used drip roll on, and all the pumpkins are clean when they go to sell them. So that's their advantage. I think you'd probably keep your ear to the ground, and if you're half interested in it, there's a lot of information about. There's simple things to do for starters that a lot of people are doing. Just ground cover, all those sorts of issues. But there are some things you can do that are definitely going to take soil biology out. So I guess you would avoid those and perhaps tip more in favour of the things that are going to foster more biology.
Michael, you're stunning, son. I noticed on one of the slides it was Rodale.
Yes.
But you didn't speak to it, I don't think, or was that other institute that you had a photograph of?
That was
that part of Rodale?
No, that wasn't part of Rodale at all. No, I did visit Rodale. I didn't have. Some of the results to do with organic yields and things, I had access from Rodale, but I didn't have the time and access at Rodale to really get the nuts and bolts of it as much. It's very similar to what was being done in Switzerland as well, anyway. So, but obviously on different continents.
Soil biology, is it different on what scales? Like in a local area, you have a local soil. Has that got a particular biology that's different from the one that's 10 k's away?
I think once you get down, it's probably not my area of study and expertise, but I think locally you're probably right. Even within continents, you're pretty similar. But it seems to go hand in hand with the plants. Because the plants really do support the biology. If you take the plants out, you lose the biology, which is a problem in a farming system. If you take everything out, you've got nothing there left to support the biology. So areas that have got similar vegetation have probably got similar soil biology. Is that sort of an answer? I think just a small one too, like Australian soils are low in phosphorus. Australian plants have evolved to be much more efficient at accessing locked up phosphorus, and it's the biology that goes with it that's doing that. And that's this mycorrhizal fungi in particular is one that the researchers have grabbed now. And it's the sort of buzzword at the moment, and as they do more research, that'll change. It'll be something else, maybe in 5 years.
Michael, the cribbing machine you showed a picture of in the cover cropping, I didn't understand. I thought the idea of cover cropping is to get your cover to last. But was the cribbing killing crop, or was it trying to engage with the soil to break it down? Or
no, they don't want to break it down. They call it terminating it, so you get to a certain date. They've got whole calendars of operation on how you might use different species at different times, depending on what your cropping program is. The idea is to roll it down, and it's got bars on it every 8 inches, and you can fill it full of water to get more weight in there, and they crimp the stem, and as soon as they crimp the stem, it basically shuts that plant down. The idea then is to sow into that in the same direction of travel with a disc seeder, and you're sowing your next crop into it, and that will last long enough to give you cover and get the next crop up. Does that answer?
You're interested in your comment about some billions of soil biology in each soil. We've got all these people running around suggesting we spray all these microbes on our soils, and what you're suggesting, there's an expression about something in the wind, and I just wonder if that's where we are. It's actually really a waste of time.
I wouldn't say it's a waste of time. I just think you need to probably go a step further and think, what am I spraying? Why am I spraying it there? And I've heard stories of people spraying soil biology out on plateaus. I think if you're in that situation, there's nothing there to support it. It's like dropping a human in the desert. And if the biology you're going to spray out, I think there's a case where you want to really build a system quickly that maybe you need to introduce some biology. So perhaps that's applicable. There's a lot of single-use products, and from everything I saw, trying to use a single product to get a specific result. It's sort of more about traditional thinking. Well, I'm short on phosphorus, I'll put phosphorus in. I'm short on nitrogen, I'll put nitrogen in. Or I'll put a bacteria in that's going to give me more of that. The results have been really variable, and I'm not saying it doesn't work. It's just that it could be hit and miss. And again, more research. I can't find Department of Ag information on this sort of stuff because it's just not there.
Michael, having surveyed biological systems right across the world, how do you think the best of them compare with really well-developed conventional systems in terms of productivity and economics? Are they up there yet, or are they still got a way to go?
I think it's almost like a similar question to what David Brandon asked. There's a million extremes in between because it depends on scale and knowledge of the person that's doing it. I'd almost say that there's as many shades of grey in there as you'd like to pick. I think if a very good biological and organic producer has an extremely low cost base, then they're going to be just as financially viable as other people. But you've also got yield constraints to consider there as well. That's something that, as a broader sense in the industry, trying to feed more people it always crops up as being important. And just even on that point, I think probably we can produce enough food quite easily. What we've got to get rid of is the waste. There's so much waste of food, from handling to processing to retail and what's thrown out, and then what goes off in the fridge. So anything.
Probably a statement, but I'm interested in your comments on it, but I think there's a hell of a lot we don't know about the relationship between soil health and soil biology and plant health.
I think you're definitely right. And animal health. So it's, like I said, it is a broad topic. So the issue is, I think where we have niche production systems with single plants, they can be missing out on the benefit of all that soil biology. So there's a lot more being brought to that plant. There's more, and I'm not going to say that our mass-produced foods aren't nutritious. I just say I think that the plus in an organic or biological system is probably a more nutritious plant, and potentially with more health benefits. And animals that eat on that are going to be more have a healthier product. I guess we get a healthier outcome from it. And a simple thing there is, if you have a grain-fed animal, the omega-3 levels drop off very, very quickly in a feedlot, whereas grass-fed, and that's Australia's advantage, it's a level of grass-fed product. So there's just one small example, and I think that can be magnified right through the whole system.
And congratulations on your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I go for a statement? One like this one, would it be fair to say that soil structure and all the biological stuff gets better the closer you get to a intensive livestock industry like a feedlot or a piggery? So this is all about freight.
So I haven't quite got the...
So you're talking about the end of phosphorus and all these things, and the ultimate would be, compost or something at home. As a general rule, the closer you get to a free ride, because of freight, is usually better. People who've got their soil structures and their health and all that stuff.
If they're spreading manures,
Yeah, well, they generally do.
yeah, well, they can get access to it cheaply, yeah. But, you know, overseas now, they used to have to pay people to take the manure away from some of the dairies and places like that, and now it's liquid gold. So, other than the nitrogen, the fact they've got to limit the amount of nitrogen they put on the ground. So it's an extremely valuable resource. But I think probably those soils, I know if you put manures on, you do have higher microbial levels than traditional, conventionally run ground next to it. But I think if you get a really, really good biological or organically operated system or a hybrid, I visited so many people who said, and even on our farm, we're not organic, we're not biological. I'd like to lean that way because if I can not use a chemical, they're expensive, I don't want to do it. If I can get away without using fertiliser, I'll do it. So we've used no ground spread fertiliser in our pasture operation for over 11 years now, and I'm not saying we won't do it, but it's been expensive and we're getting along, and it's just, we're rotationally grazing like with Mount Wellington, so I think it takes 3 to 5 years, I think, for the soil biology and those things to start to ramp up and you start to get the benefits. I have no problem whatsoever putting phosphorus out, but I'll be careful about what types I put out because I don't want to have a lock up and lose it with an expensive product. I'll put something else out that might last a bit longer.